I was having y'all with Rico from StreetScores, and man, we gotta dive into it, bro. And just to warn you, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a heads up very early on. I'm not trying to clickbait y'all or nothing like that. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all know that we're diving into this from both sides. Is Jayden Daniels failing the Commanders, or are the Commanders failing Jayden Daniels? We're gonna dive into everything, man. We're even gonna dive into the fact and even show you some clips that he practiced earlier today, Wednesday, December 10th. And the fact that he's already ruled out for Sunday is crazy. We're going to dive into the hypocrisy of everything that's been said. I have advanced stats for y'all as to why this season's been going so terribly for Jayden Daniels. All kinds of things, man. We have so many things to dive into. This entire video is dedicated to Jayden Daniels, except for the very end. I'm going to give you some other injury updates, but that's going to be like probably the last 5 minutes of however long this video ends up being. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate y'all for staying patient with me, even though I haven't been able to put out content on a daily basis like I want to. Appreciate y'all for still pulling up, man. Shouts out to my Watch to the End gang, man, that watch these videos all the way through. Shouts out to my Noti gang that's on these videos immediately. Shouts out to my late night crew that's going to be watching this way super late into the night, putting in them vampire hours. All of that, man. Shouts out to everybody that wakes up and immediately I'm the first video that you play, man. That's a big shout out to y'all as well. I got to figure out something to name that group especially as well so I can consistently shout y'all out. And be on the lookout because I am working on a mock draft. Now, this is going to be the most fun mock draft because I'm doing a scenario where, especially with Jayden Daniels potentially out for season, which we're going to dive into in this video, we're going to dive into what would the Commanders do if we ended up with the #1 overall pick, especially since you don't need quarterback. But let's go ahead and get into this video right now. Be on the lookout for that one. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, what just happened? What hit the breaking news today that just sent everything into a frenzy? Well, 12:30 p.m., Adam Schefter tweets, Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels, who suffered another left elbow injury versus the Vikings, is out for Washington's upcoming game versus the New York Giants. How do we already know that he's out for Sunday's game on Wednesday, especially after the things that Dan Quinn just told us immediately after the game, and then other things he told us on Monday? Everything sounded like it was just fine. I was assuming, not even just guessing, I was assuming Jayden Daniels will be playing against the New York Giants. Again, we're going to get there, because then shortly after that, literally 4 or 5 minutes after that, Adam Schefter tweeted, there were no structural setbacks for Jayden Daniels, but after medical evaluations, the doctors have advised he not play on Sunday, and he will be reevaluated next week. Now, to go back to what I was briefly mentioning, didn't Dan Quinn just say that Jayden Daniels could have returned back into that game? I mean, literally, right after the game. We're talking 4:30 p.m. December 7th, Sunday evening, right after the game. Remember, our game wrapped up so quickly. Dan Quinn, who, like, everybody was already panicking or shocked. They were like, yo, it's never taken Dan Quinn this long after a game has ended to speak to the media. But time-wise, he still ended up speaking to the media relatively quickly at 4:30 p.m. It's just our game ended so quickly. By the time our game ended, we still had other games going, like 8-9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But the way that game went, I was happy that we got it done as soon as possible. But either way, Dan Quinn just said immediately after the game, when he had his press conference, that Jayden Daniels could have returned, but they decided to hold him out, which makes you assume Jayden Daniels is good to go. Him re-injuring his elbow while getting pushed down by a shot taken by a corner. And I mean, it is a dirty play, but at the end of the day, I mean, when quarterbacks get involved, and, you know, since quarterbacks are so protected when they're in the pocket, when they have the ball, when they're doing quarterback things, when a quarterback turns into technically a cornerback with the way that he was pursuing the guy that he threw the interception to, defensive players are going to take shots at that more times than not, bro. He's been trying it. They want to hit the quarterback so much, and when they finally get their chance and they can do it legally, they're going to do it usually. It's a dirty play, but it's a play that most players make anyway. But either way, with that, that's how he got hurt again. This wasn't like Jayden Daniels scrambling too much or anything like that. This is him, if anything, doing too much, trying to be a defensive player after he threw an interception. But either way, when he got hit by that corner, taking what you could definitely easily argue a cheap shot on Jayden Daniels, he hits his elbow in the ground, goes into pain, and suffers some sort of pain, goes to the sideline, never comes back. Marcus Mariota finishes the game. But again, Daniel Quinn comes after the game and says Jayden is fine, and he could have came right back in that game if they felt like it was anything to necessarily play for. And then, I mean, he said that he could have returned, but he wanted to keep him out. And then John Com asked Quinn if he still wanted to see Daniels play this season. Dan Quinn said, quote, "It's an important development time for him," unquote. So Dan Quinn has it in his mind that yes, Jayden needs to play some of these last few games before we get up out of here so that he can carry that momentum, development, chemistry, whatever that he can gain from these last few games into 2026 when we are, finally back healthy and we're revamped. We've gone through free agency. We've gone through the draft and things like that. Our team is better. Now, Jayden Daniels is going to be better because of those last few games. In theory, according to Dan Quinn and a lot of Commanders fans, those last few games could end up being pretty monumental in Jayden Daniels' ability to get his confidence back, to get his chemistry back with the receivers and all of that type of stuff. And then on Monday, Dan Quinn said that there are no long-term concerns in Jayden Daniels' left elbow. He said that he just felt sore, but he and his team will continue to monitor it. And then Adam Schefter even tweeted like, all right, man, back on Monday, immediately after Dan Quinn said that, Adam Schefter said that they should just go ahead and shut down Jayden for the remainder of the season, which again completely conflicts with Dan Quinn is thinking as far as Jayden Daniels needs these reps, in-game reps, and he could take that into the 2026 season. And JP Finley brought up a good point that Jayden's missed a lot of times this year and dealt with 3 different injuries, but this is the first time that he's re-injured something that matters. And that is a good point right there. This is the first time that it's like the same injury again. You know what I'm saying? We all know how we felt about Terry coming back from a quad injury. Then we felt like he came back too soon after he hurt his quad again. And that made us nervous about him returning from that same quad injury later on. Even though he's held it down, he's been healthy for 2-3 straight games since he's been back. He looks like he's pretty good to go. But with Jayden, this is his first time re-injuring something, like JP Finley pointed out, and that is going to make this a little bit more complicated of a situation than it typically has been for Jayden Daniels. But then today, it was reported that Jayden Daniels did re-aggravate his elbow against Minnesota per Dan Quinn. No structural setbacks, which is still great news. That's positive news. But they've already announced that he will sit out this Sunday versus New York, and Marcus Mariota will start. Dan Quinn even said, quote, "Haven't really gone down that road yet," unquote, about shutting down Jayden Daniels. What happened? Just a couple of days ago, you said, no, we're not going to shut him down because he needs all of these games and reps the remainder of the season. That could be valuable towards his development, chemistry, all of that type of stuff going towards the season. Now, suddenly on Wednesday, you're like up in the air about it. You're not very definitive either direction. You're not, he should play. Back on Monday, he should play. Wednesday, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it's not looking good. It sounds like we're inching closer and closer towards maybe Jayden Daniels will be held out for the rest of the season. Grant Paulson even brought up a great point. He went from he was way less definitive about he's going to play, it needs time on the grass, and then turned more so into we haven't gone down that road and we're focused on this week. It certainly feels like the door has opened to shutting them down. Whatever happened since Monday up until today, Wednesday, something changed. Something in between those couple of days changed Dan Quinn's mind. I have a theory that it may be Adam Peters. We're going to address that later. But Jayden Daniels is even still practicing. And not only just practicing, but looking good doing so. Here's a clip right here uploaded by John Durant. And with this 10-second clip, he said, Jayden Daniels at practice Wednesday. Dan Quinn said that he will practice in limited fashion this week, but just will not play. But they've already declared he's out, and yet he's still out there practicing. And again, by the way, looking pretty good doing so. Granted, it's not like it's a leg injury, it's an elbow injury, but he doesn't look that bad. He doesn't look like he's really hurt. And then even Nikki Javala also uploaded a clip of Jayden Daniels practicing. And he still looks pretty good here as well. I would have never known if you didn't tell me that he has some sort of an elbow injury. Now, of course, it's not like he's he's dealing with contact towards it to really make sure it's okay. But it's not like he's holding it stiff or anything. He's moving it around when he was doing all this juke and stuff. His arm was moving just fine as if there is no injury at all. It's actually really interesting. And then shouts out to Chris Russell. He pointed out the fact that I don't know I was fairly convinced that he was ruled out and couldn't play so early because he was very sore and perhaps swollen / lack of range of motion. That from everything that we've been hearing of up to this point of Wednesday. Then the practice happens, and then we get we actually see the clips of the practice. Chris Russell says, this seems to indicate that he's mostly fine and certainly good enough to practice. No idea what to think right now. A lot of people are up in the air and confused as to what is the messaging from the Commanders right now? He's practicing, but he's not playing. You know what I'm saying? What is going on? And then when he does practice, he looks good. And this is definitely going to be a debate topic and a big theme centered around this team, concerning this team, pretty much every week this season. I mean, it looks like Jayden will be more than likely week to week as the season goes on, and the confusion and uncertainty will also be week to week around this franchise concerning his injury. Every week for the remainder of this season, we're going to be questioning should or shouldn't, will or will not Jayden be playing in this upcoming game, especially with the NFC East division gauntlet that we're about to go through right now with Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, bro. This is going to be really interesting. Shouts out to Ethan Goodell. He said Jayden Daniels' last 3 starts at Dallas versus Seattle and at Minnesota have resulted with him leaving the game early due to injury. That is an interesting point. 3 straight starts, he's left games due to injury. He hasn't put together 2 healthy games in a row yet. Sunday's game will mean he's missed as many games 7 as he's played in this season. 2026 is a big year for Jayden to prove 2024 is the norm and not 2025. And that is a good point. Going into 2026, there will be questions that, hey, is Jayden more of his 2024 self or is he more of his most recent 2025 self? Which one is he? Of course, I firmly believe he's his 2024 self, but I'm warning y'all right now as Commanders fans, those questions will be out there. There will be a lot of doubt even amongst the fan base. And then, again, you saw him practice in those clips, and then when the Commanders officially came out with the injury report, he was, like Dan Quinn said he would be, limited in practice. Dan Quinn said that he's probably going to be limited all week, but again, he practiced. You know, some guys like Bobby Wagner and Chris Rodriguez didn't practice at all. You know, not any bit today. And we're not even talking about rest, like Von Miller rest, Laramie Tunsil rest, but guys like, again, you have Jonathan Jones, Drake Jackson, Chris Rodriguez, Bobby Wagner, all missing practice, didn't participate at all. Jayden Daniels at least was limited, but hey, Jayden Daniels already ruled out, those other guys aren't. It's a really weird, chaotic, and most importantly, confusing situation right now. Very, very confusing. And also, shouts out to JP Finley for pointing this out. Since Jayden Daniels has already been ruled to be out, I mean, these tickets are dirt cheap, bro. He said even with 2 bad teams, I'm surprised how cheap tickets are for this weekend's Commanders-Giants game. $26 to get in New York, $80 for lowers. And I also want to add to the fact that this is a division rivalry game that's going to have hard knocks involved and things like that. I know both of these teams suck. Both of these teams are potentially going to be fighting towards a number 1 pick. Whoever ends up winning this game, number 1 pick, plans cancel. But if whoever ends up losing this game is quite likely to end up with number 1 pick, especially now that the Titans ended up beating the Cleveland Browns, bro. So, I mean, a lot of these teams have to play each other. I believe the Giants still have to play the Raiders. Like, somebody in front of us in pick order is going to win another game. They have to, because a lot of these guys play each other. A lot of these sorry teams, just like the Browns had to play the Titans last week, somebody had to win that game. Just like this week, next week, I think it's the Giants and the Raiders or something like that. And there's probably a couple of other matchups like that throughout the year. But again, it's just crazy that this is a division rivalry game. It's New York. I mean, just New York in general. And the ticket prices are this cheap. But I feel like most of that has to deal with the fact that it's going to not have Jayden Daniels out there. They've already announced Jayden Daniels not playing. So I'm pretty sure that has a large influence over that. So now we need to question who is actually the one holding Jayden Daniels out. The doctors may be the scapegoat. You could already see that Dan Quinn did not want to. Dan Quinn said back on Monday, and I don't think anything changed except for a voice higher up saying, nah, this is over with. Stop. Just chill. Just stop forcing it with this guy. Dan Quinn clearly wants Jayden Daniels to play. Jayden Daniels clearly wants to play. I'm assuming Cliff Kingsbury wants Jayden Daniels out there. Now, out of nowhere, doctors come in and they're the ones saying that he's not allowed to play. He's allowed to practice, but he can't play. You know what I'm saying? So I think the doctors are the scapegoat right now. Again, I think they're saying, hey, the doctor said he couldn't play. What can we do? Like Dan Quinn, all of these guys, the organization, like, hey, the doctor said it. Hey, my hands are tied. Even though I'm pretty sure it's one of the top decision makers trying to save Jayden from this season, if I had to guess, it's probably a general manager. In situations like this, your general manager, like an Adam Peters, is the one that's looking long-term. Dan Quinn, your head coach, is typically looking short-term because this seat is hotter. A head coach will be fired before a GM. The GM is like, hey, man, y'all not about to mess up the long term with this Jayden Daniels thing, trying to, get some sort of a gratification or whatever pride you have on the line for the remainder of this already lost season. Whereas Dan Quinn's like, man, I got to go out there and coach these guys every day. I'm the leader of the locker room. I got to look these guys in the face and let them know, hey, your best chance of winning these games, even though you got to go out there and put your blood, sweat, and tears, your best chance of winning these games is being held out even though he physically can play. So it's an ugly situation for Dan Quinn. I get it, but shouts out to the Commanders. It looks like they're trying to put the blame on the doctor, saying that they have said that Jayden shouldn't play. Shouts out to Lev Martelli. He said, think about it, bro. Dan Quinn said Monday that Jayden could have went back in. They chose to keep him out. Now it's the doc saying no bueno, huh? Who's really keeping Jayden out? Of course, there's a lot of doubt out there. And shouts out to the Richmond John, because he brought up a good point too. He said Peters probably doesn't even trust this staff right now with how they're handling Jayden Daniels, and he's probably just cut it off. He's given them enough leeway, and he's seen enough, and he's like, all right, the way y'all have managed injuries this year has not gone well. I'm shutting them down from the top. I'm pressing the red button. His season's canceled type of thing. I would not be surprised. John said they've been really bad at every phase of coaching this year, and they haven't done a good job of protecting Jayden Daniels, which now takes me to my next point. And before we dive into whether this is a Jayden Daniels fault thing or a Commanders fault thing, is Jayden failing the Commanders or are the Commanders failing Jayden? Before we get there, shouts out to Sleeper, man. And with them, you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash with daily fantasy football. In Washington, even though Jayden Daniels is out this upcoming game against the Giants, you still have Terry, you still have Debo, you lost Zach Ertz as well, but maybe Bill, this is his chance to bounce back. Who knows, bro? Maybe Traylon Burks goes out there and gets another amazing catch. And you can pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for, again, up to 1,000 times payout on Sleeper. That's literally, I'm saying, you could take $1 and turn it to 1,000 depending on how you finesse your 8 legs. And right now, as you can see on the screen, new users can even get a free $20 without a deposit on top of the 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit using promo code SCORE. That's SCORE. Or you can just click the link at the top description of this video and every video on live stream I'm doing all season long. And before we get up out of here, I wanted to show you some of the picks that I just made right before I started streaming. Like literally like 10 minutes before I started streaming, I was on Sleeper and I was getting busy. So right now I took the free Baker Mayfield. All he has to do is get 1 passing yard. We're good to go there. Joey Sly, I think he can get 5.5 kicking points, man. He's been doing that most games this season. So, I mean, literally out of like the last 10 games about, like he's not done it 3 times. Like I think he's gonna get that. Kai Fireburn, all he needs is 1.5 field goals, which means he needs to make 2 field goals. The Texans get in the red zone and don't score a lot. There's a chance that he could get his 2 field goals. He gets 2 out of the last 10 games. He's only gone 1 game without making at least 2 field goals. I think that's a good play right there. Darius Slayton, y'all saw how bad this defense was against the Vikings. I think that Darius Slayton, as long as he's healthy enough to finish the game, he can get 35.5 yards. Jackson Dart can easily run for 30 yards against us. We made J.J. McCarthy look like Michael Vick out there at times in that game. And Jackson Dart has been a better runner than J.J. McCarthy has been this season. So I wouldn't be surprised if we make Jackson Dart go out there and look better than Mike Vick. Jalen Waddle, as long as his longest reception is not at least 21.5 yards, or really 21 yards or less, we should be good to go. I think he'll get yards against the Steelers, but their defense is playing pretty well right now. They made the Ravens look silly at times. Even though the refs cheated them, they cheated the Ravens, the Steelers, actually, they're looking pretty solid on defense. I think Jalen Waddle will get some yards, but I don't think he'll have a big play. Then A.J. Brown, I think he'll get more than 64 yards against the Raiders. They're the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? You know how the Eagles feel. They got to keep him happy. They got to just throw him target just off of the fact that he may throw another 10 potential. And the Ja'Cory Krusky-Merritt, I'm just betting that he won't get a touchdown. I'm rooting for him to get one. This is kind of one of those plays I do where I'm rooting for Bill. I want him to get a touchdown, but if he doesn't, it's like I win either way. Either we're good on the slip or I'm happier in with real football. So either way, and I also just don't think it's likely he gets one again. I'm rooting for him to get one, but I don't think it's very likely. So that is a way that I'm going to try to turn $5 into 436, or you could put in 10. and potentially win nearly 900. You know what I'm saying? So again, shouts out to Sleeper. With them, you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash. Now let's get back into this video and dive into whose fault is it, Jayden Daniels or the Commanders? Let's start with, is Jayden Daniels failing the Commanders? Is he setting himself up for failure? Is it not? Is it mostly his fault more than anything else? Well, Grant Paulson brought up an interesting point. He said the beauty of running quarterbacks is the ability to leave the pocket, to make a throw, extending to creating the passing game. See the shot to Terry versus the Browns last year. That was a ridiculous play. JD5 has left the pocket to run at a higher rate this year than he did last year in 2024. This is my number one thing to track into the future. And then he cited this article paragraph right here saying, I'm not necessarily advocating for Daniels to take fewer trips outside of the pocket, but I would like to see the quarterback throw more often when he does escape. And this actually was a serious red flag of his coming out of college, that he scrambled too much and his scrambles turned into runs way more often than they should have. Rather than him scrambling to throw, he was scrambling to run. Only 39% of his out-of-pocket dropbacks have ended in a pass attempt this season. Forget completion, pass attempt at all. That's easily the lowest mark in the league, and only Justin Fields 45% and Drake May 49% are within even 10 percentage points of him. The number was higher for Daniels last season at 42%, so this issue seems to be getting even worse. Again, he's done it even more in 2025 than he even did it in 2024. And he was already one of the worst at it in 2024 as far as making sure he throws the ball once he scrambles. But, I mean, we're never complaining when it works, when he does run and he's making great plays. And you could even argue, if he had better receivers, he would throw more while scrambling. He's looking down the field. It's not like he's a guy that just has his head down running. He's scrambling, looking up, and he just doesn't see anything. But either way, we're going to keep diving into it. Of course, you have the junkies. Some of the biggest Jayden Daniels haters doing it. They are sick that we didn't take Drake May. And it seems like they're really still holding on to it, but I'm not going to dive into that. They tweeted, how much does this worry you? Additionally, according to Pro Football Focus, Jayden has only slid 4 times on 41 scrambles. By comparison, Drake May has slid on 15 of his 50 scrambles. So that's 9 more scrambles, but at the same time, 11 more slides. So he slides at a slightly higher rate than Jayden, but it's not like a significant amount more. But then they also reference this article paragraph right here from, I believe it was ESPN or somewhere, titled, Jayden Daniels is breaking himself. So they're blaming Jayden. They said, let's stick with the theme of quarterbacks who are scrambling too often. Of all of the concerning statistics attached to Jayden Daniels' sophomore slump, and yes, he's officially in that territory at this point, this one might be the most worrisome. Daniels' scramble rate is up by 3% points over last season. That's the number Washington wanted to bring down after Daniels scrambled on nearly 13% of his dropbacks as a rookie. His scramble rate is up to 15.7% in 2025. Those all sound bad on the table, but shouts out to Tom Shad because I completely agree. And this is what I initially thought when I was reading that tweet and that article that the junkies cited, because I completely agree with this. Why are we specifically talking about slides only? Tom Shad said counting slides is a terrible and imprecise way to measure this, in my opinion. Daniels rarely slides feet first. He often just gives himself up by running out of bounds or just kind of falling down. There's different ways to accomplish the same goals of avoiding a hit. Because mind you, the reason we're even talking about how often he slides and how often he scrambles to throw versus scrambles to run, the main focus is how much punishment he's putting on his body. When you hear he scrambles to run way more often than scramble to throw, you're just assuming, you're just picturing in your head that he's running and taking a big hit. But no, that's not necessarily the case. Even if he's not sliding, even if he's not throwing the ball, he still finds a way to get down real quick. You know, he kind of falls down in a way, or he finds a way to just walk out of bounds real quick and stuff like that. He does that quite a bit, or even just throw the ball out of bounds type of thing, just to not force the play, to just go ahead and live the, play another down just by throwing the ball out of bounds. And shouts out to Tom Shad. He also said, haven't crunched the numbers from the Vikings game yet, but entering Sunday, he'd run out of bounds 14 of his 35 scrambles. That's 40%, bro. That means he's looking, he's scrambling, he doesn't see whatever he likes. I mean, of course, I got to look at the all 22 to see maybe there was a receiver open, he just didn't see it. I don't know, but either way, it's not like he's taking a bunch of hits. Like people hear, oh, he's scrambling to run more in 2025 than he was in 2024. That must be why he's hurt more often. But no, a lot of these have been absolute freak accidents. And 40% of the times that he does scramble, he's just running out of bounds. That's not including sliding. That's not including just falling down after he gains a few yards. That's not including any of that. Also, shouts out to Tom Shad. He said, entering last week, Jayden Daniels had slid, giving himself up or running out of bounds 71% of his scrambles this season. The bigger issue is the hits and the situations in which he's taking them on the other 29% of scrambles. And that is a great point. So that's the real dive into why he's getting hurt. It's not because he's scrambling to run more often. I mean, that, when you look at it from the surface, you would just assume that's the reason. But it's more so when he does get hit, the way that he's getting hit. It's not the fact that he's putting himself in more danger more often when he's scrambling. It's more so, I think a lot of it's bad luck. A lot of it is weird. But also, shouts out to Rush Manual. We said JD File already has more than half the number of rushing attempts of RPOs than he did versus last year, despite currently being at less than half of the number of games played. That's an issue. Maybe we could argue that's a Cliff Kingsbury thing. I don't know much of that if it's fueled by a lack of comfort in his receivers relative to last season, including the running backs. And that is a good point, which really takes me to now the alternate question, the conflicting question. Are the Commanders failing Jayden Daniels? Because maybe a lot of this scrambling and not throwing the ball is because the receivers aren't open. Terry and Debo on and off of being hurt, especially Terry. No Noah Brown since week 2 until just this past game. All kinds of injuries amongst the Commanders' weapons and targets that Jayden Daniels could be throwing the ball towards. And maybe it's just nobody's open, and that's why he's having to do all of this compared to last year where Terry was healthy all season. So now let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. Are the Commanders failing Jayden Daniels? And to be honest, referring back to the title in this question, really it seems more like Jayden Daniels has a Commanders problem than the Commanders have a Jayden Daniels problem. Let's dive into it. First of all, JB Finley said, I think it's pretty hard to judge much this year in Washington with all of the injuries. And then also number 2, I thought this was really interesting from Dan Graziano of ESPN. Dan Graziano of ESPN said, there are people around the league who think Washington isn't doing Jayden Daniels a lot of favors with the amount of no-huddle offense and the sheer numbers of plays the Commanders run in games, though that might be an outdated critique. Washington ran the 5th most offensive plays of any team in 2024. This season, it has run the 23rd most, but it also hasn't been as successful on offense, so time of possession is way down as well. Some also feel that there's a discussion that Washington needs to have about how much it is exposing Daniels to potential contact with designed runs on first down. Daniels has the 9th most first down rushing attempts of any quarterback in the league this season, despite only playing in 7 games. That is a ridiculous rate right there. Over the past 2 seasons, he leads all NFL quarterbacks with 89 first down rushing attempts. It's a useful weapon in his arsenal for sure, and he'll need to continue to be able to run to be successful, but a leaner quarterback who came into the league with concerns about taking too many big hits might benefit from a change in philosophy, regardless of whether the Commanders shut him down for the rest of this season or not. So we're talking about 2026 Jayden Daniels and beyond. For the remainder of his career, can we please make some adjustments, Commanders, while y'all have this elite talent at the quarterback position? Shouts out to Marshall. He said, I'm irritated big time with this organization. Everything they do bugs me right now, but at least it's just football stuff instead of the smut and the white collar crime, which I agree. Those are all good points, but shouts out to Chad Ryan. He said this whole situation is legitimately weird. We were told he was fully cleared at 100% last week, but he played with a protective brace on his elbow. He went to the ground and re-hurt his elbow and left the game, but we were told he would have come back in. Now he's out? Like, what is actually going on? Shouts out to Commanders lead. They said either shut him down or let him play. The weird middle ground of babying him is probably the worst thing they could do. He was apparently healthy enough to finish the second half last week, but Dan Quinn kept him out because the vibes were off. Quote, struggling to see the goal here. All good points. Shouts out to Josh Taylor. He said Jayden Daniels cleared to return during the game, but not advised to play Sunday by doctors. Shut him down instead of damaging him physically and mentally even more. Josh Taylor's fed up with it. He said just shut him down. Jamal, my boy at Let Martella, said Jayden next start better be September 2026. But shouts out my boy at Red Zone in the Lab, Deuce Red Zone. He brings up a great point. If Jayden Daniels doesn't play all the rest of the season, you have to play him at least 3 quarters in the preseason. So keep that in mind because he's going to need those reps. Well, you keep going into these offseason, even his rookie year, like, he doesn't need to necessarily play in the preseason. Nah, after what we've seen this season, Jayden needs to play more in the preseason than he has his previous 2 years, his rookie year and his 2025 year. 2026, we need to see more Jayden in the preseason because he's probably going to need it. That's all a great point. But again, going back to the main topic, I do feel like the Commanders are failing Jayden more than anything else. My personal opinion, the reason Jayden's getting hurt more than anything else is that a lot of this scrambling and having to run and taking these hits is because the receiving core has not been as good as it should be. The offensive line is just fine. You know, they've had bad moments, especially the time he got hurt against the Cowboys the first time we played them a few weeks ago. That one was an offensive line problem. But most of these other ones are Jayden in a weird situation because receivers are not open. And receivers are not open because we don't have enough receiver talent. We don't have enough receiver talent mostly because Terry was hurt all season for the majority of the season. And then even when he wasn't, it still wasn't a great enough ensemble of receivers and weapons to where, oh, okay, Terry's not open, Debo's not open. Okay, but at least we have this other guy that may be open. You know, so I feel like we have to do whatever it takes to surround Jayden with better weapons, more consistent weapons, more available, healthy weapons this offseason to prevent further injury. Because you think you hear a quarterback getting hurt, you're like, oh, maybe he's running too much, and that's his fault. Not necessarily in this case. There's more nuance to that. You naturally think, oh, the offensive line isn't protecting them well. Not necessarily in this case. There's nuance to that as well. It's weird when your quarterback keeps getting hurt, and when you actually really dive into it, it's more so because of the receivers not getting open. But that's more my personal opinion. There's a lot of things, though. It's not like it's only the receivers. Some of it is Jayden Daniels' fault. Some of it is the offensive line's fault. Some of it is Cliff Kingsbury's fault with the play calling that he's giving them. But I feel like more than anything else, the biggest part of the blame pie goes to our receivers not being open. But you can even blame maybe, hey, the receivers are open, but Jayden isn't seeing them. You know, that maybe that's another piece of the pie. But again, I'm going to blame the receiver talent and availability this season more than anything else. Or also, how about moving on to the next section of this video? Maybe this is just a weird season. There are other top elite or even just really good quarterbacks that have just had unusually bad seasons. Like ESPN did the Ringer.com did an article where they literally broke down why Mahomes, Jayden, and Baker just suddenly fell off the face of the earth this year. Like, and Baker started off this year really good and then fell off. The Chiefs started off pretty good. It was like ugly in the first couple of games. Then they found their greatness and they looked like typical Chiefs stuff for like a middle few games. And then since then, they've fallen off a cliff. And of course, we already know about Jayden Daniels. But look at this right here. This is one of the main reasons I think this is a receiver problem. Because look at this, bro. You see the company that Jayden Daniels is in. A lot of the top quarterbacks that, you know, that are in this MVP conversation, MVP race, especially my Georgia dog, Matthew Stafford. You know what I'm saying? Jayden is right with them, if not better than them at certain things. Like, you're looking at EPA per pass attempt going from left to right. That's the x-axis. Jayden Daniels is only not as good as Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford, Drake May, and Sam Darnold. And then when it comes to going from bottom to top, that's the y-axis, that's catchable ball percentage. That's when a quarterback throws a pass and it's an easy catch for a receiver. The only person doing better than Jayden Daniels, efficiency-wise, is Bryce Young right now. That's it, bro. That is actually incredible that Jayden Daniels, even with the injuries that he's dealing with, even with the lack of receivers and whatever else the problems that he has around him, he is still playing nearly at an MVP level, just in spurts though. When you're looking at advanced stats like this that completely isolate the quarterback from everything around him. Forget the offensive line, forget the receivers. What are you doing as a quarterback? Jayden is up there with Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Drake May, Sam Darnold, Bryce Young, all in that same company of quarterbacks all the way at the top. Even better than Josh Allen in both categories, better than Lamar Jackson in both categories, better than Jared Goff, better than Dak Prescott in both categories, better than Love over there with the Green Bay Packers, better than Daniel Jones, who was having so much of a great season. And most importantly, look at Jayden compared to Marcus Mariota with the exact same offensive line and receivers to throw the ball to. And that's the difference between Jayden and Marcus Mariota. Some people saying that Mariota is better than Jayden. No, if anything, Cliff Kingsbury makes the offense easier for Marcus Mariota, and that's why he seems like, to some delusional fans, that he may be better than Jayden Daniels for whatever reason. Look at this right here, the gap between Jayden and Marcus Mariota on this chart alone. So it's not a Jayden problem. It is definitely a Commanders problem. Then from there, you can figure out, is it the receivers? Is it the offensive coordinator? Is it the offensive line? But you can see from this chart alone, this is not a Jayden problem. People are going to claim sophomore slump, and I'm going to just show them this chart right here. But either way, even moving on from that, maybe we're all overthinking this. You know what I'm saying? Even this entire deep dive. maybe they're just protecting Jayden from the worst field in the NFL. Did anybody think of that? I mean, the field that leads to some of the most notorious non-contact injuries in NFL history, bro. Shouts out to Joseph at J. Leonard on Twitter saying, wouldn't play him on MetLife Field unless there's playoff implications. I completely agree. Shouts out to Serge the Shooter. He said, I was more afraid of MetLife turf and Jayden being on that more than anything. The elbow didn't even cross my mind. So he's saying, like, forget the elbow. Just we don't want Jayden Daniels playing in MetLife on that cursed field unless there's some type of end goal that's beneficial enough to where it's worth risking. Like, if we can still potentially win this division, still potentially make the playoffs, still have a chance of going to win the Super Bowl this year, then yes, maybe you play Jayden. But even if he never had the elbow injury, even if he never got hurt at any point this season, some people probably feel like, hey, that Giant Stadium, you probably don't want to play a franchise quarterback on that unless there's a good reason to do so. So forget even the fact that Jayden Daniels has had an injury history this year. Isolated from that, people just don't want Jayden playing in MetLife Stadium, period. And maybe that could explain how Jayden was healthy enough to go back in the Vikings game, but not healthy enough to play against the Giants a few days later. I mean, the fact that they've already made that decision and declared it on Wednesday, you still have 4 days and 2 practices before that game even takes place. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that they've already made that decision, maybe this is a MetLife Stadium thing more than anything else. Maybe Jayden does immediately return against the Eagles the following week. Shouts out to JP Finley. He said, I think folks are thinking too hard about a second-year quarterback not playing when the team is 3-10. I agree. Not saying what should or shouldn't happen, just saying we shouldn't be surprised. He missed a month with an elbow injury, then injured the elbow again. I agree. Then shouts out to Grant Pauls. He pointed out the fact that Jayden Daniels has either been unavailable for or injured in 11 of the 14 Commanders games this season. If he can stay on the field next season, perhaps we can look back at this year and say all of the issues just stemmed from him being in and out of the lineup. I completely agree with all of that, bro. I'm telling you, I think 2026, we're going to come back like nothing ever happened, bro. We were historically injured this year, most notably at the quarterback position. I think once we're just a regular NFL team level of hurt, because football, you know, injuries happen in football. That's the nature of the sport. But if we just natural, average hurt, you lose a couple of starters, a couple of backups, that's cool. If we're just like the typical medium of NFL injuries, of the toll that an NFL season takes on the team, I think we're right back to the playoffs firmly and one of the more dangerous teams in the NFL. But that's just me. But also, speaking of injuries, man, prayers to Zach Ertz, man. Dan Quinn already confirmed that Zach Ertz did suffer a season-ending injury in Sunday's game against the Vikings. Wishing 86 a healthy recovery, of course. And then earlier today, they already made the official roster moves because of it. The subsequent moves were, they placed tight end Zach Ertz on the injured reserve list. They signed running back Chase Edmonds from the practice squad, so he may play. Because, I mean, you know, you lose a tight end to the injured reserve. You don't replace him with another tight end. You replace him with a running back. And I just talked about earlier how Chris Rodriguez didn't participate in practice. Today is in Wednesday. So, sounds like Chase Edmonds may be the next guy up to potentially run the ball. And maybe your starter is Bill. Maybe your second guy is Jeremy McNichols and Chase Edmonds is third. Who knows? We'll see. But then, also, since they have an open practice squad spot now that Chase Edmonds went from the practice squad to the 53-man roster, they signed Kevon Seymour back to the practice squad again for like multiple times that's happened this season. But I mean, even at his age, man, I don't believe Zach Ertz ever missed a game until that crazy accident that just tore his ACL against the Vikings since we signed him with the Commanders. I know he didn't miss a single game last year, and I don't think he missed a game this year, even with as chaotic as it was, bro. So, man, shouts out to Zach Ertz, even at his age, to do that. Incredible. Shouts out to Sleeper Commanders. They said he came here towards the end of his career to establish himself as a legitimate tight end one. Was such a crucial piece in last year's playoff run, I agree, and was a leader on the offense, I agree. Talk about a guy who was giving this all for this team, wishing him a healthy recovery. I'm going to go ahead and assume that he's not back next year, because this is the type of injury, and especially at his age, and especially with it happening December, I don't think even if he were to want to come back, he's not going to be ready to play by September. So we have to go into this offseason assuming you don't have a Zach Ertz. And which is why I've already been saying for weeks now, please go get me a Kyle Pitts. I know he's not the most dependable tight end, but he's better, at least receiving wise and as a receiving threat wise, than Ben Sinnott, Kosin Yankov, or John Bates will ever be. But Again, shouts out to Zach Ertz, man. This is the 8th week 1 starter to land on the IR in 2025. He'll also be the 24th guy on the week 1 depth chart to miss a game due to injury, illness, or suspension this season. I mean, this season is, just leave us alone, bro. The Grim Reaper, the injury bug, whoever you are, man. We quit, bro. You win. Is that what you need to hear? We win. But speaking of injuries, here's the injury report right here. Again, it's interesting that Chris Rodriguez and Bobby Wagner missed practice just straight up. No rest. Again, Laramie Tunsil, Von Miller, rest. Cool. Drake Jackson was still waiting on him to get healthy enough to make his debut. Maybe he finally does it this upcoming week. Jonathan Jones is also hurt as well. But Bobby Wagner, your starting linebacker, and Chris Rodriguez, technically your starting running back, both missing practice on Wednesday, and the fact that we brought in a running back from the practice squad does not sound pretty good for Chris Rodriguez. And hey, mind you, shouts out to Disco to point out the fact that Chris Rodriguez is a pending restricted free agent, meaning that the Commanders can match any offer that is made to him, or if they don't, they may receive a compensatory pick depending on how it goes down. But I would love to bring him back, but I'm just not as high on him as some of y'all out there that feels like he should be our RB1. RB2, just fine. I feel like we have a roster of RB2s right now. I feel like Bill is the only one that has the ceiling of an RB1, but he's been playing like an RB2 or 3 so far, for the last, since we basically been on this losing streak. Chris Rodriguez at best, a good RB2, but an elite RB3. Jeremy McNichols, solid RB3, you know what I'm saying? We need a true RB1 this offseason. So, I mean, I think we end up, my honest assumption, or not even assumption, my educated guess would be, matter of fact, forget educated, completely uneducated, super ignorant guess is that we go offense in free agency and then we go heavily defense in the draft. That's what I'm thinking. I think you go get Kyle Pitts, and I think you go get like a Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall or something in free agency. That's your running back and that's your tight end, and then you focus so much talent on the defense in the draft. But we'll see, man. A lot of things can happen from now to then. Maybe we swing big on edge rusher and free agency. But either way, again, long story short, I think the Commanders are more so at fault than Jayden Daniels. Let me know how y'all feel about that in the comment section. That's the end of this video, man. Please make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next. That's the subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate y'all for supporting my videos, man. If you made it this far in the video, 40-something minutes in, I salute you personally. If you can still watch me and see me, appreciate you personally. Shouts out to my Watch the End gang, man. Shouts out to my Noti gang that are on these videos immediately after I release them. Shouts out to my late night crew that's going to be watching this way later tonight, even though, it's 10:40 right now. It's probably going to come out by 11:30, but shouts out to those of y'all that be watching these at 3, 4, 5 a.m. I'll be right up with y'all anyway. I'm still going to probably be working on my mock draft that late. I'm not going to record it and edit it and put it out yet, but I'll be up with y'all. And then shouts out to the early morning crew too, man. Immediately when y'all wake up, first thing y'all do on YouTube is pull up my videos, man. So I appreciate all of y'all, man. Leave a like and a well, and of course, most importantly, please let me know in the comment section how you feel about this entire situation. Is it more of a Jayden problem? Is it more of a Commanders problem? And if you agree that it's more of a Commanders problem, which part do you think is the biggest part? Like, do you think it's a Cliff Kingsbury thing? Do you feel like it's an offensive line thing? Do you feel like it's a lack of receivers? Mostly due to injuries, but just period, lack of targets available for Jayden Daniels, healthy and available and good separating targets for Jayden Daniels this season that's leading to him getting hurt the most. Or if there's another thing that you could point to blame the most, let me know exactly how y'all feel. Really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later with another video. I'm out.